It can be fun to dream of your ideal lighting kit, but if budget is your biggest concern, this video is for you. This is the SootPhoto P100 RGB, and there's a lot of things about this light that make it one of the best budget alternatives out there. The Amaran lights are some of my favorites, but they definitely aren't the cheapest option, and there's actually one thing that the SootPhoto light can do that the Amaran lights cannot. Even though it is a budget light, the P100 RGB comes with a carrying case that securely holds the light, the reflector, and the AC adapter. The build quality on this light is where you'll notice most of the differences compared to higher end lights. It is all plastic, but it's not poorly made, and it's not going to randomly break unless you're dropping it on the ground. It's just not designed for daily abuse on professional sets. The angle adjustment on the mounting yoke does have teeth, so it securely locks into place and shouldn't sag using appropriate modifiers. It does have a full Bowens mount for modifiers, but I wouldn't recommend anything bigger than a 36-inch softbox with this light, although that should be plenty for the majority of setups. On the sides of the light, you'll see what makes the P100 RGB so unique. It has two battery slots, so you can power it not only with wall power from an outlet, but with NPF batteries as well. The one thing to know is that when you do use batteries, you're limited to 80% power, so you get slightly less brightness in favor of longer run times. On the back of the light are two knobs to adjust the brightness, color temperature, and tint, as well as 4 buttons to change modes and for wireless control. This light has a huge color temperature range of 2800 to 10,000 Kelvin, and I was really happy to see that it also has green magenta tint control. A few years ago, I had the older P80 RGB, and the tint control on that light just didn't work well enough to be used at all. Luckily, they fixed that with the P100 RGB, and you can adjust the tint to perfectly match any other lights in your scene or ambient light sources as well. The special effects on most budget lights are borderline useless. This light not only has a decent selection of special effects, but you can also adjust the speed and frequency for some of them, so they are more useful than most. The P100 RGB also supports mobile app control, and I was pretty surprised to see how quick it connected and how fast and responsive the app actually was. Some apps take 20 or 30 seconds to connect to a light every single time you turn it on, and that can get really annoying. You can control absolutely everything from the mobile app for either individual or groups of lights. Now, I don't want to make it sound like this light has no faults, because there's one main gripe that I have with it. The screen on the back of the light just isn't that easy to see. Maybe I'm just getting old, but the contrast between the text and the background color on the screen just isn't high enough to be easily visible. You have to look at the screen from directly behind and about 20 degrees upwards so you can see it the best. I don't know if that's by design, because this light usually will be up on a light stand, so you will be looking up at it, but from the sides you essentially can't see anything. But at the same time, the mobile app can be used in place of the onboard controls, so it's really not that big of a deal. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that when you cycle through colors in HSI mode, the transitions between each color is not perfectly smooth. That doesn't really bother me, but if you plan to change the colors on this light while you're filming, you might not get seamless transitions. One thing this light does excel in, however, is lack of fan noise. The fan is very quiet compared to both non-budget and budget options, so if loud fans are a deal breaker for you, that won't be a problem with this light. Obviously, SootPhoto had to cut costs somewhere, but how does this light stack up in terms of brightness and color accuracy? I tested this light with my Sekonic C800 from 1 meter using no modifiers and got the following results. With the light set to 3200 Kelvin, I got an actual CCT of 3361, a brightness of 3480 lux, and after adjusting the tint as best I could, a color correction number of just 0.1 green. I got a CRI of 95.1, TLCI of 98, and SSI versus the tungsten standard of 82. The CCT was only about 160 Kelvin off of what the screen said on the tungsten end, but after adjusting the CCT to get as close to 3200 Kelvin output as possible, the SSI jumped even higher to 84. With the light set to 5500 Kelvin, I got an actual CCT of 5029, a brightness of 3550 lux, and again, after adjusting the tint, a color correction number of 0 or perfectly neutral. I got a CRI of 95.6, a TLCI of 99, and an SSI versus the daylight standard of 74. The actual CCT was about 470 Kelvin off of what the screen said, which is more than I'd like, but after adjusting the CCT to get as close to 5500 Kelvin output as possible, the SSI increased to 75. The main thing to remember is that you need to set the white balance on your camera after setting up your lighting if you want the most accurate colors. No matter what brand or what light you're using, the color temperature and the tint will shift depending on the modifier you're using or even the age of the light. With all that said, the color quality that comes out of this light will not limit you in any way. Just keep in mind that you're not necessarily going to get the exact output as what the screen says, but that's very common, especially with budget lights. It's also nice that the P100 RGB is about half a stop brighter than your typical 60-watt bicolor light, and obviously it has full color capabilities as well. The SootPhoto P100 RGB retails for about $215, while something like the Amaran 150C retails for $359. There are clear differences between the P100 RGB and other lights, but if budget is your biggest concern, this light can definitely get the job done, especially for smaller creators. But what do you think? Leave a comment and let me know if you think this light is worth picking up, or if you'd rather save your money up until you can afford something more expensive. Links are in the description if you want to check this light out further. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.